Hi, everybody. Today I have a really special guest with me, Meenah Tariq. I came to know Meenah through I2I when you were working as a head of strategy and accelerator with Kulsum Lakhani, who we have interviewed in the past for the series. I'm really excited to know about you, Meenah, because you've had a really tremendous journey and you've been a really important part of the startup ecosystem. And you've been there among, the OGs, when it all started. So I think for me, it's really important to get to know you as a person. How are you juggling with all the different roles that you have right now as a co-founder of Metric? We'll get to that in a bit as well. You're a mom to a 5-year-old. I've seen a few videos on LinkedIn as well.
3-year-old.
3-year-old?
3-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A mom to a 3-year-old. And you're also working with your husband on this new project that you're working on. So I think there's a lot that's happening on the back end, but I really want to get to know more about you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Sanya. Super excited to be here.
Awesome. But I really want to know, how was the last year for you? Like, as as a co-founder, as a business person, like, I know it's too much to wrap up, but how has it been for you?
It was the most phenomenal year of my life. Like I keep saying this to people, I don't have the words to explain how insane last year was. I'm drinking water because it makes me cry every time I talk about last year. Like I'm just like sipping water so I don't tear up. But last year was just one for the books. Like it was the most growth I've ever experienced inside of one single year. It was the most I've cried because of work in one single year. It was the highest of happiness that I've ever gotten from work in one single year. Like it was just because for us last year started with the nervousness of going into the fundraise. So we started working on Metric, which is my current company, in 2021. So at the start of 2022 is when we had geared up for our fundraise, and we'd made our deck, and you're like, okay, when do we start reaching out to people? Like, how do we do this? Like, making all of kind of those decisions.
Yep.
So January 20th was the first day that we sent out emails or had a call with like the first investor that we spoke to about Metric. And my birthday is the 23rd. So I was actually pretty pissed. I was like, why are we doing this in my birthday week? Like, why are we doing this high stress stuff in my birthday week? Can we not choose any other time to do it? So it was my birthday week, and we decided, okay, we're just going to start reaching out to people. And within 10 working days, we closed our round, which was insane. Like, Omar and I have been on the VC side before, and we know it takes time. But it was all the work that we had done before that kind of came into play and helped us close our round so quickly. And so within 10, so the year starts off with like high levels of anxiety and fear. And we're putting what we've been working on for the last 6 months in front of people. We've been like, Omar had quit his job. So we have a baby, and now, this is going to be like the do or die, and people are going to be telling us if they think this is going to work. So it's a very vulnerable position to put yourself in. So that's how it started. And then towards the end of January, like by the end of January, we had raised our round, and we were oversubscribed. People were trying to give us more money than we wanted. And people were like just emailing us at that point saying, I would like to get in if you have allocation. We'd like to invest. If you have allocation, we'd like to invest. And we were in the position where we had to actually say, no, we don't have an allocation anymore. And that was also really hard because it's so hard to say no to money that's coming in, right? So we had to kind of make those decisions at that point. But that was we went from like super high anxiety to super high like levels of happiness. And then we were going around trying to find a bigger office space, because at that point we were in our friend's office. We sublet a room from our friend, and we were kind of working out of his office. So we wanted to hire more people. We needed to move our team to a bigger office. So we were going around looking for buildings, and then selling everything we had. Like we sold all of the gold Omar and I had to pay for the new building, because as you know, even though investors commit, the money doesn't come in at that point. So investors committed in January, but the money didn't come in until like March, right? So between January and March, we had to put in the down payment on the building and like pay for ACs and everything else. And so we sold off all the gold we had, and actually even my mom's gold, to pay for everything, so that like we paid back as soon as the company got money, the company would just like pay it back. But that's what was happening in reality on ground, right? And so we went from high nervousness to high excitement. And then when we moved in, we went straight back to high nervousness and high anxiety again, because now we were in this office space. We had to hire people. We
Yes.
had to get the new version of the app ready at the same time. We had to build teams. Like, we had to hire people and build processes at the same time. People that were coming in needed to be told what they needed to be working on.
Sorry, how many people did you have in the team at
At
that
that
time?
time, we were about 5 or 6 people at that time when we started off. And then in February onwards is when we really started hiring, because then we had money to pay people, right? So
Right.
we started bringing people in. And again, like, this is, I can go on and on about stuff that happened last year, because it's so crazy. We were trying to hire people and people wouldn't join us because they didn't know us. They're like, what company, what metric, who are you? So why would we, like, this is too high risk. Like,
Yep.
so Omar and I thought that the first person that we should hire should be an HR person, like a people person. And then that person will take over recruitment. So we don't have to kind of go on LinkedIn and email people and message people. So the first person we tried to hire for was the HR person.
Yes.
We offered 5 different people that role. Like, we actually gave offers to 5 different people who turned it down. Essentially, it was too high risk. The money we were offering was too little, and nobody had heard of Metric. People didn't want to leave like jobs at, the Poverty Alleviation Fund and like government and big banks to come to a startup. So we went from having to convince investors that we were credible to having to convince employees that we were credible. And I'm not going to go on and on about these, but I have so many examples of like the stuff that happened last year, which just takes you, how they say in startups, the highs are high and the lows are low.
Yes.
It's like, it's this swinging kind of pendulum. And there is so much fatigue that comes from constantly switching. Like, context switching is what it's called, right? Switching contexts all the time. So I'm thinking about fundraising, talking to investors, and then I'm thinking about the product, I'm thinking about the tech, and then I'm thinking about employees and hiring, and then I'm thinking about people management, and then I'm thinking about organizational growth, and then I'm thinking about marketing and product marketing and the growth. So it's like you're just constantly going from one topic to the other. In the space of an hour or 30 minutes, you might have 5 or 6 completely different conversations, and some might be super awesome, and some might like seriously suck. So that was last year, Sanya. This is, I swear to you, I'm holding myself back from telling you all of the stories. You should come over for coffee someday whenever you're next in Islamabad, and I will tell you what happened last year.
I would love that.
It was insane. It was insane.
Oh my God. But I think, Meenah, it is so credible though, because if I understand correctly, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So you started Metric in August 2021. Is that correct?
June, July 2021. Yeah.
June, July.
June or
And
July
then
2021.
you got the funding in January 2022. That is amazing. I mean, hats off for that, first off, honestly, because I mean, just few months in a new product, completely, I mean, while you're talking with the rest of like 5 to 6 people in the team.
Yeah.
And then getting a funding of because you did manage to raise $900,000 for Metric.
Yeah. 900 something, nearly a million. Yeah. So and this is why it happened, and this is kind of like what you were saying right at the start about what is the kind of pieces of advice that people in their 20s should be kind of looking out for. I think it is, that fundraise came 6 months after we started Metric, but it actually came 10 years and 6 months after I started working in the startup ecosystem.
Wow.
So what they say about an overnight success, right? Like, it's not those 5 or 6 months that resulted in us raising or being oversubscribed in 10 days. It is actually the decade of work that we've been doing in front of all of these people, with all of these people, that resulted in them saying, whatever it is that you're working on, we'll write you a check. And actually, for us, like, that's what was going on. Even in January, people had been reaching out to us since before we opened our round. People started reaching out to us in September, October, saying, hey, we've been hearing about you working on something. What is this thing? Can we get on a call to discuss? And again, that's because of the work that we had done before, right? And that's what I think Omar and I have both realized about our careers overall. We didn't make a lot of money in our 20s. You know, we were actually laughing about it. In our 20s, we hustled real hard. We were doing 5, 6 jobs at the same time. We were working overtime. Whatever we were doing, we gave a lot of our heart and our soul to it. And we did it for the love of the game. Like, we were excited. We worked on things we were passionate about. We worked on things we really wanted to be working on.
Wow.
And we made sure that we did the best we could. So then when we shifted and decided to do something new, all of the people that had worked with us in the past, who know how we operate, who know exactly how we execute, who know what our strengths are, right? They're the ones who wanted to join us at that time. So in our 20s, we just worked really hard and hustled really hard. It is
Wow.
in our 30s that we started to make money, that we started to see those kind of growth results. Umar was saying the other day, his growth has been like, you know, that the hockey stick growth curve. If you chart his salaries, you will actually see like dot, 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 and then
Wow.
yeah, that's the kind of growth we've had because we put in that work early on. So your 20s are for building your credibility, your brand, your expertise, your mastery. It is for showing that you're an executor. Anybody that is going to be somebody who's good at execution will always find work, will always get a job, will always be hired, will always be someone that people will take a bet on. So I think, yeah, for us, it's not, you know, it's not that, oh, we raised our funding in 10 days. It's actually that decade plus those 10 days that people had seen us. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's actually so beautiful that you bring in that context to this conversation, you know, because like you mentioned, it's never an overnight success. And I'm so glad that you're saying it, you know, like in terms of, and it's absolutely true. You do have a decade-long experience and you've helped and worked with so many people in different organizations. And maybe we can get to that as well, because Meenah, I would really want to know, for me, for example, I do know that you were at I2Y before. So I do want to understand, like, how has it been for you working in different spaces, like building those roadblocks and building those, you know, like ecosystem for different other people. And now you're on a space where you're starting something of your own. Like, how has that shift been for you? Like being an ecosystem builder and now being someone who's just starting.
So for me, entrepreneurship has always come first.
Right.
So there is a why, and like it's very easy to look back and connect the dots, right? So all the work that I've done has been in service to this cause. And this cause isn't just, it's not that I kind of looked outwards and said, oh, this is what I want to be working on. It's actually something that started off very early on when I was super young. I think I started selling stuff when I was like 6 years old.
Wow.
But even early on, if you look at the context within which I grew up, women around me were not very empowered when I was growing up. Like, you know, the mohalla that I was working on, the community that I was working in, growing up in, there weren't really a lot of choices, and women didn't really have a lot of agency or a lot of choice. And the careers that they had, which were kind of allowed, were medical or engineering or, you know, things like that. And even those were very, very, very few. Like most women around me were getting married, and that was kind of it, right? But even when they got married, the women that I saw around me didn't really have a voice. And so I learned very early on this financial independence for women was something that I think I learned in my mother's, you know, lap. Like it was almost spoon fed to me. I think my mom has always been and my mom's not a working woman. So I saw her suffer all her life because she wasn't financially independent. And I saw other women around me constantly suffer because of it. And so when I started business or I started making and selling things, it was because somewhere in my head, I thought that women couldn't really have careers because it wasn't really allowed or there weren't opportunities. So the one thing that they could do was make and sell things. So that's how I would make my money. And I started doing it very early. So whatever it is that I could do, any skill that I had that could be monetized, I have done that. Like you name it, I've done it. I've done photography, I've done event management, I've tried to make and sell clothing, I've written articles, I've done like freelance stuff all of my life. Like again, it was everything was about getting financial independence so that I could have a choice and I could have a voice and I could do my own thing. So I saw that very early on, and that's like deeply ingrained in me. So even the hard work that I've been talking about, like it's just kind of been in service to that same cause. I've never said no to work in my life. I think now is when I've like, when I quit, when I started Metric, when I came on to Metric full time is when I, for the first time in my life, I actually said no to other work. And I said, no, I need to focus on my own startup now. I can't be doing other stuff on the side.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
before that, I've always had, 5 to 6, or like at least three to six jobs at the same time. And most of them have been entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So around me, I saw that women who could do entrepreneurial ventures were able to take more control of their lives. So when I went to business school, even in my undergrad, I went to the FAST
Yes.
business school.
I was just about to get to that. Yes.
Yeah, I thought I was going there to become an entrepreneur. But the way business education is in Pakistan, it's not very entrepreneurial. They don't really teach you entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So when I graduated, we're like, okay, you just have to get a job. I got a job at Ufone. I really, really hated my job. I seriously hated working in a big corporation. I was a small cog. I couldn't see who I was making a difference for. Like, what did it even matter? Every day, whatever it is that I did, I was kind of it was very uninspiring for me. So Fulbright, when I applied for the scholarship, was almost a way to get away from that, where I was like, okay, I need to be doing something else.
Yeah.
But if I leave my job, everybody's just going to force me to get married. Actually, even with that job, people are just trying to force me to get married, right? So I had to run away from two things. I had to run away from a job I hated, and I had to run away from being forced to get married right at that point. So my mother actually said that. She's like, listen, if you don't want to get married right now, you need to apply for a scholarship and go, do your master's, because that's the only way. So my mom forced me to apply for the scholarship and to go. And that's how that worked out. And when I was coming back to Pakistan, I think my top priority at that time was to do something in the entrepreneurship sector. I didn't really know what the ecosystem looked like at that time. I didn't know how incubators and accelerators were working. So it was really, really lucky for me that I met Kulsoom. And I think I couldn't have worked with a better organization, because I2I in itself was extremely entrepreneurial.
Absolutely.
When I joined, there were 3 people there. And I think our average throughout my almost 4 years at I2I was a team of like 3 people. We were just always 3 people. And we'd go up to 4 or 5 and come back to 3. That's how it was. There was a high level of ownership. You had to make work. And because we were a very small accelerator, and finding funding for accelerators and incubators is actually very difficult, always. So with a tiny team with almost no funding, you either had to work really hard to generate funding for yourself, or we decided, okay, why don't we start doing consulting work on the side and earn money through which we can then sponsor our own accelerator. And that's when I became the head of strategy at I2I, actually. So we started doing consulting work. We started pitching for consulting work. We would write proposals ourselves. We would go pitch, and we started to get work. So the 4 years that I spent at I2I, we were able to, I think we got, like, by the end of it, we were starting to get much, much larger projects. Like, I think double what I2I had been getting in the past. We were able, because it was a very like deliberate approach to, okay, now we're going to start becoming a consulting company instead of just depending on grants or external funding. So in itself, all of that process was very entrepreneurial. Plus, when you work with entrepreneurs, you are just constantly inspired.
That's true. That's true.
Entrepreneurs are people who are very passionate. And when you interact with people who are passionate, it inspires passion within yourself too. So I loved it. Like, it was just, I think my 4 years at I2I, I think I poured my heart into the work that I did. I loved it so much. I can't begin to. I mean, you met me when I was working in I2I, so you probably remember.
I think for me as an outsider, like, I could see the synergy that you guys have. And honestly, when people talk about like, oh, ex Kareem and ex this, like, for me, I do know that there's an ex I2I, and as soon as somebody has that attached to their name, they're definitely going to be doing wonders. I don't know what it is, but there's like amazing like energy, and the way that you guys work together, and the ideas that you guys bring to the table, and the impact that you obviously create. I think it's amazing. Absolutely.
So Zoom inspires that kind of passion in people.
Absolutely. But in that sense, like, I really want to understand, Meenah, like, how have you now like trickled down that sort of an effect to Metric? Because I was going through the website and I was like, these values of the company seemed like completely outstanding to what I've seen before. So how was it for you, like building that team culture, bringing those values into Metric, and now building a team, mashallah?
You've just hit like our favorite topic, which is our values.
Yes.
Our favorite topic at Metric is our values. And we worked on these values before the fundraise, before anything. Again, when we were like a team of 6 people, we sat down with the team and we brainstormed what are the values that are important to us. Omar and I have both, and Habiba, our co-founder also, we've all worked at different organizations and we've worked within different sets of values of those organizations. So we had very clear ideas of what we enjoyed and what we didn't enjoy. And we really believe, Sanya, we're not in this world to do mediocre work.
Absolutely.
We're not in this world to do, okay stuff. We truly believe that we are here to do something phenomenal. And to do that, you need to put it out there. You need to put it on the table. And then that needs to be central to everything that you do. So we are very clear on what our priorities are. We're very clear on what our principles are. So all 5 of our values are things that have trickled down from all 3 of us as co-founders and then our early team also.
Absolutely.
Our value of no gatekeeping, for example, like we're very clear that we do not want to gatekeep anything. We don't want to gatekeep knowledge. We don't want to gatekeep growth from anybody. So in our company, anybody can learn to be anything. You can be an accountant, but if you decide that you want to grow in the direction of product, we're not going to stop you. You can attend those meetings, you can learn about it. And if you see that there's a direction that you can take, we are very happy to help you get there. We don't require degrees for jobs. We have pretty much no jobs for which there is a requirement for you to have like an undergrad degree or a graduate school degree. We don't care. You can come from any background at all. You can come from any socioeconomic segment. You can speak any language, and we will try to be as inclusive as possible. And we don't believe in inclusion for the sake of inclusion. We believe inclusion results directly in growth, right? So that's just one of our values. So yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. So, that's just one of our values. So we very, very strongly believe in all 5 of our values. Even our interviews are based on those values. We think people can learn anything, but if they're not a value match for the company, then they're not going to add value to the company also. So our interviews too are based very much on these are our values and how do you fit into those values of the company. So yeah, we call ourselves a values first organization. It is our favorite topic. It is part of the language here at Metric, and it is something we feel very strongly about.
Amazing. No, I'm actually so happy to hear that, because I personally think that this is one thing that's missing out in a lot of, the Pakistani startup the ecosystem, like different work cultures and different startups and environments. But I'm so glad that you're working on it. And it's actually something that is happening, during interviews as well, because it's so nice. It's actually so nice because you not only find someone who is in it just for the sake of it, like you mentioned, but also in it for the long run, right? They can move around different roles, work on different things, they can acquire different skill sets. And I think I will definitely conclude this, later on down the line, like when we're getting to the advice part as well. I really want you to share why people should join Metric, because I do know that there will be many people listening to this conversation later on who might be looking for jobs, maybe in their early careers and looking for a job where they're like, oh, I don't have too much experience, because every job requires experience. But if you're not able to build that experience, you don't get a job. So it's like this whole vicious circle, that we get stuck in. But yeah, I think in that sense, Meenah, you also mentioned about not being taught entrepreneurship in Pakistan. We don't have that. But you did get a chance to teach entrepreneurship in NUST. So I just want to understand, like, how was that experience for you? And also, like, what is a learning in terms of whether it's mindset or skill set that an inspiring entrepreneur should have?
I loved it. I love talking about entrepreneurship. And so I loved teaching it. And at that time, what was kind of fresh in my mind was I was coming back from Babson, which is world #1 for entrepreneurship. And I had all of the course material and all of the kind of do's and don'ts that I saw in terms of entrepreneurship education over there. And so for me, it was more, how do I give back? How do I distill everything that I've learned and pass it on to more people? So A, I was working eye to eye, and B, I thought, okay, maybe if I teach at an entrepreneurship school, I'll be able to kind of pass on that curriculum and inspire like a large group of people, and then they can kind of take it forward. And that's what resulted in me working at NUS. I honestly didn't really apply to a lot of places. I spoke to somebody at NUS, they said, yeah, come on. And, I kind of joined. And I took all of my 2 years at Babson and distilled those 2 years into a curriculum for entrepreneurship for 1 semester. And I had so much fun. It was a phenomenal learning experience. So again, for me, teaching entrepreneurship is more about kind of giving back. And even the trainings that I did, any training that I ever do, it is more about, okay, I've been so privileged and so lucky and so blessed to have had all of these things come to me. How do I pass it on? And again, when you're teaching entrepreneurship, I think there's a few things that, especially to young people, when you're teaching at a university level,
Yes.
there's a couple of things that you're trying to do. A, you're trying to inspire them, but B, you're also trying to get them to think big. And Sanya, when I was teaching entrepreneurship, this was pre the startup ecosystem boom. The startup ecosystem boom happened in 2020, 2021, 2022, or even 2019, 2020. I was teaching in 2015.
Wow.
So at that time, startups were still considered very, very high risk, not a very good way to earn money. And like nobody was really at that time. I mean, if somebody raised $100,000 round, we would just go crazy with happiness because that was unheard of, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very different world that I was teaching entrepreneurship in. I think if I taught it again today, it would be a completely different context.
Absolutely. But if I want to understand in terms of, passing on knowledge, and I think if there's one thing that I do hear in your conversations a lot, Meenah, and it's really nice, is that how, let's say, for example, your mother passed on, that financial independence and different values to you. And then how, in terms of no gatekeeping, that is a value at Metric. And also in your personal journey, there is no gatekeeping, like passing on that knowledge at Nust or passing on that knowledge in different ecosystems that you've been a part of. I really want to understand, like, you do have a daughter and you're also, working with your husband as a co-founder. So I really want to understand, like, what is something that you want to pass on to your daughter, and what is the, the future or the ecosystem, like this whole, like a space that you want your daughter to grow up in as a value. For example, your mother passed on financial independence to you. And of course, that was the need of the hour, because back then and even now, I think at least we're growing in the right direction, right? So what is something that you want to pass on to your daughter?
I think financial independence is, you're right, it's going to be something that becomes a norm, more or less. In an economic crisis, you need more bodies working. And so more and more people are going to not only allow women to work, but actually push them to work.
Yes.
Because you can't have like 50% of your population not being productive in a more, kind of capitalist way, I guess, in society. So they've been productive in social ways, but not really like productive in terms of industrial capitalist ways. And in an economic recession, more and more people are going to want more people to be earning and contributing. So I don't think it's going to be a very long time before women are just, it's going to become a norm. It's not going to be a question anymore, even in our country. But for Mirana, I think another value of ours at Metric is doing epic work, which is kind of linked to what I was saying before, that you're not on this earth to do mediocre stuff. And so I think that's what, if I inspire her to do one thing and it's that, I think I will be very happy. Because again, it is connected to what I just said about, if you believe that you're here to do phenomenal work, you will try to work in that direction. And you will never have to fear not having enough money or like any of those things, because I have very rarely seen people who really do phenomenal work not get somewhere. Like, it's been very rare that has happened in the people that I've seen. And I've seen people from very kind of like socioeconomic places which were really tough for them to get out of, but because they continue to do great work, they were able to make something of themselves. So yeah, I think that's the one thing that I would want to kind of inspire her to do, to believe that she's on this earth, that she has a greater purpose, and that to fulfill that, she has to put in the work and the energy and the effort, and inshallah she will get the reward.
I love that so much. Oh my God, I hope she's watching this when she's at her 20s as well.
I will put this in the required watching list for her.
Oh wow. But Meenah, my last question, since we're almost out of time as well, what is your advice to people in their 20s? You have worked with 20-year-olds, you've taught them, you've been around them, you were once one of them as well. So now coming to a point where you are at a point where you're contributing, giving back to society, as a founder, as someone who is building an ecosystem where people can now, like giving employment to people as well. I think it's a very powerful role to have. You're also an investor, so you do give back to startups every now and then whenever you get a chance. And knowing you, I know you'll continue to do that. But what is your advice to people in their 20s, starting off their careers? We're also, in an economic downturn situation right now where people are losing their jobs as well. So I would really want to know, what is your advice to people, whether in terms of entrepreneurship, if somebody wants to start off, their own thing, or they want to get a job. So yeah, if anything you can talk about.
The one investment, or the greatest investment that you can make, is to invest in your own selves and in your own personal growth. Yeah, it is by far the best investment that you can make. I spoke about this in a like TEDx
Yes,
talk that I was
I
invited.
was just about to say I'm going to link it.
Sanya, when I was growing up, I was so worried about being a generalist. Like I can't begin to tell you like how much imposter syndrome I've had about who I am or my skill set. I don't have a technical background. And when I say technical, not even like a tech, like not even an accounting, like I don't have a hard education, knowledge, skill set background. Everything I've studied is like the soft stuff. People have always been looking, and I think even maybe now they look down on the BBAs. They're like, what BBA? Mein kya? What do they even teach in BBA? You're just a BBA. What are you talking about? Like, we're chartered accountants, we're engineers, we're XYZ. And so I constantly thought, okay, maybe I need to do another degree. Like, maybe I should have just become an engineer. Maybe I should have just become a chartered accountant. Maybe I should have done something else. I'm such a generalist. Where am I going to fit? Where am I required? But if you keep on doing those things, you build your circle of expertise over time. So there's two things I think that you can do in your 20s. One is to invest in yourself and do many things. Try many things. Don't try to limit yourself too early on. But two, whatever you do, try to do it the best possible way that you can do. Like, try to do it at a global level. Don't think about, in Pakistan, we have a very, bare minimum kind of mentality where we think, okay, if we can do this much, that's enough. If we just get this done, that's kind of fine, Think about what the gold standard for it is and try to hit that. And it can be anything. It can be a small side gig that you're doing, but do it with the best or the highest amount of passion that you can. I don't know if that's very generic advice, but I will be very honest, that's what really worked for me. I think, and that's what I see a lot of people doing. They're too scared to experiment. Our society constantly tells us to not experiment. Our society wants us to become experts like right out of school, and be very clear about what we want to do. When I was at Eye to Eye, what my dad used to say, he used to say, "Ye to companies ki secretary hai." Like she's just like a personal assistant to other businesses. People would make fun of the fact that I was working on the kind of stuff that I was working on, and they didn't understand. And sometimes even today, our family's like, "What are you even doing?" They don't understand, but it's okay. You don't need everyone to understand every single one of the steps that you're taking. You just need to know that you're doing it for a greater reason that you understand. You're experimenting, you're investing, you're taking those risks, but you are doing them with deliberation, with energy, with passion, and trying to do the best that you can at them. And then you kind of like let it all come together and let it all work out. I had no idea how I would be an investor, right? When I was at Eye to Eye, I really wanted to get into the VC space. And I used to cry about it. Like, I remember like crying to Umar about, I don't have an accounting degree. I don't have a finance degree. I can't break into this. I know so much about the startup space. If I was a VC, I'd be able to help them find the best deals, but I would never get in because I don't have this background or this degree. And I had so when I was offered partnership at Caravan at the VC fund that I worked at, it just blew me away that my imposter syndrome wasn't letting me see something that my partner saw in me, right? So again, me like second guessing myself for being a generalist all my life, or hearing my imposter talk all my life. But you just keep on doing the best that you can, and you keep on investing in yourself. You keep on investing in your ideas and your thoughts and your whatever it is that you feel passionate about. And inshallah, you will start to see the results.
I have no words. This was so nice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Meenah.
No. I was just saying, Sanya, I hope I'm not like speaking in cliches, because I'm trying to be very honest about everything that I feel has worked out for me. And but I'm also like, I'm very cognizant of my own privilege. I'm cognizant of the privilege that I got when I got the Fulbright, because it did change my life. I came back with an international degree, so I am very cognizant of where I'm coming from and where I'm speaking from. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, I'm making it sound so, breezy and everything's
No,
just
no,
going to
no.
work out in the end. And, for people to think, oh, she has no idea what life is like on ground.
No,
That's not what I'm trying to do. So I hope it doesn't come across that way.
no, it won't. It won't. And honestly, for people who do really want to get a chance to work with you, there is a job board available at Metric, and I'm going to link
Yes, yes,
to this,
yes,
when we
please.
launch this. So I
Yes,
really,
please.
honestly, I really, really want people, wherever the offices are, where do you have it? In Lahore, Islamabad? Is it remote, not remote?
Yeah, so we have our offices in Islamabad, but we hire people from all over, and you
Amazing.
can be
Okay.
anywhere in the world and we'll figure it out. Again, like it comes down to like that kind of value
Yes.
alignment,
Yes.
and it doesn't, we know we can make it work.
Awesome. Awesome. No, but I really want people to work with you because it's amazing. I feel like they could learn so much. And of course,
Yeah. And
just
I want everybody that's watching to also pray for us. We're going to go into our next fundraise, inshallah, very soon. So
Oh, wow.
again, that kind of like cycle that I just told you
Yes.
about. And now we're going into fundraise in 2023, which seems to be the
Oh
toughest
my
year
God.
to ever fundraise.
Yes.
And you kind of hear about like the economic crisis and everything that's kind of going wrong, and people are finding it really hard. A lot of people aren't investing anymore. A lot of funds aren't investing
Yeah.
anymore. So it's actually like the levels of fear are probably higher than before because of all of this external environment.
Yes.
But on the other hand, our belief in Metric is actually stronger than before, because when we were fundraising last year, a lot of it was based on assumptions. We said, yes, we will make this and then this will
Right.
happen. And then we saw it happen. Sanya, when we launched Metric
Yep.
in June, 1st of July, I was looking at all of our data to write down an investor update. And I saw that we were being used in 30 countries. And I was like, what? Maybe there's like a mistake that I've made, because we're Pakistan only right now. So what is going on? And I kind of went over and over and over again, kind of rechecking. So within 30 days of launch, we were being used in 30 countries. Over the next 3 months, we were being used in 70 countries. We had crossed $1 million in transaction volume, which is like transactions people are putting in. We'd gone viral. And that in itself is a responsibility, is how I see it, right? Not a lot of people will ever get the opportunity to work on something that is life-changing for business owners globally.
Absolutely.
We've not advertised outside of Pakistan. For people to find us in countries that I will never be able to visit will have people using something we worked on, So see, I told you I like cry at the drop of a hat every time I talk about this stuff. But that's how strongly we feel about it. That's how we kind of look at it, right? It is such a privilege to do what we're doing. And so, now we're going into fundraising with like these fears about our external environment, but also kind of armed with the knowledge that what we're building is really needed.
Absolutely.
And what we're building actually works. What we thought would happen, what happened was beyond even our own wildest imaginations. So it's kind of weird to be in this situation. And I want everybody to pray for us and pray that inshallah it goes as well as it did last time around.
I mean, no, I am so happy. And honestly, I can just feel the passion, through this little screen. I mean, I'm just like, oh, this is so amazing. But thank you so much, for just sharing your journey, sharing all the amazing advice that you've had. And I really, honestly, I hope that one day, part 2, we can do again after you've raised it around, because I would really want both you and Omid, and the little one as well, to join, a little episode where we can talk about, how the relationship, the dynamics have, like how you guys invested your time in that, along with, other steps that you made. That would be amazing.
Absolutely done.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And let's meet up whenever you're next in Islamabad.
For sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks.